ABC, America Broadcast Company or conglomerate or whatever you want to call them. ABC has a very infamous show called Once Upon a Time. For 6 seasons, it's been running. It's been retelling a lot of the stories of the famous Disney characters, fairy tales, from there and beyond, any sort of stories that we knew growing up, Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Rumpelstiltskin, any and all of them have all been portrayed in a different way by Once Upon a Time, and a masterful different way. It really gave a different take on the characters without leaving who the characters actually are. So 2 weeks ago, we received a bit of news that Jennifer Morrison, who plays the main character, Emma Swan, the Savior, was unfortunately going to end her run as Emma Swan in the show, if the show gets picked up for a 7th season. So if it were to get picked up for a 7th season, because they had already finished taping season 6, in fact, the season finale is already aired, or it's airing tonight, or what have you, because it was the week before, this was being announced the week before the airing of season 6 season finale, they really couldn't go back and tape a final episode with her. So it stated that Jennifer Morrison would leave on her own accord. This was her decision to leave. However, she will come back for one last episode in order to give a proper goodbye, and kind of have her season finale, walk off into the sunset type of feeling, if the show got picked up for season 7. 2 days later, the show gets picked up for season 7. So now, a final episode with Emma Swan, with Jennifer Morrison, is going to air. But we also find out that now the actress who plays Zelena, the Wicked Witch of the West, she has been dropped, because with this new direction that they're taking it in, which nobody really knew yet, she did not fit in the picture, and she was asked to no longer be in the series. She didn't get an extra episode. She's just out. They'll probably mention it within the script or something like that. Not a day later did we find out that Snow White, Prince Charming, young Henry, Belle, and I believe that's it, were all, and I think the 7 Dwarfs, were all asked not to return for the 7th season. And with that, the founders and the writers and the producers released a quick statement saying, listen, this is all because for the 7th season we're going a new route. So apparently the way it looks like, and I mean, it's public knowledge, it's been a week, so this is really not a spoiler, and I haven't seen the season finale of season 6 yet, so I have no idea how this is going to tie in. But apparently season 7 is going to take place years after the events of season 6, in which Henry, the character, will be much, much older and will have a daughter of his own. And Rumpelstiltskin, the Evil Queen, and Captain Hook will be the 3 main characters sticking around to join in these adventures. It's also saying that they're moving Once Upon a Time from their primetime Sunday slot, which is about now, to Friday nights, which is kind of the coveted "we're canceling you soon" night time. But ABC, in defense, had said that they're moving their Friday shows, their comedy shows, out, but they're moving their fantasy shows in, which means Once Upon a Time Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans, and I think another show are all going to be in what they call their fantasy block for Friday nights. So Friday nights at ABC, it's going to be all fantasy and comic book and all that kind of stuff. I have a feeling this might be, and this is my personal opinion, but I have a feeling with what they're doing and with the fact that they lost Jennifer Morrison and this is what they came up with for their last season, I have a feeling this might be the last season of Once Upon a Time. Kind of what they did for Parks and Rec, where they knew it was their last season, they pushed it up a couple of years, they made it work. However, this one kind of got in from underneath them. Now, Parks and Rec was done by NBC, was released by NBC. This is released by ABC. This just might be them trying to play catch up on a news story that caught them off guard. Because if ABC is not happy with it or was just taken off guard by by the departure of Jennifer Morrison, which is understandably so. I mean, she's been in the show for 6 seasons, so she's been there for a while, but she's the main character. So what else could you do? And I'm sure that this this is not the time to do that kind of stuff. So we'll see. Another surprising and actually damning move by ABC was the shows that were on Friday nights. It was their comedy block. Dr. Ken, Tim Allen's Last Man Standing, and I think one other comedy show. All were canceled. Now, ABC said that the reason why they were canceling it was because of scheduling problems, that it didn't fit their new Friday drama fantasy block thing that they had. But if that were the case, why didn't they just move it? Why didn't they move it to a Thursday night comedy or a Wednesday or Tuesday night comedy or, any of the other night comedies? Why just cancel it out there? Especially something like Last Man Standing, which had a very consistent ratings, very consistent viewership. It wasn't a taboo show. And yeah, their lead actor, Tim Allen, is personally a conservative, and so was his character in the show, and so was his character in Home Improvement. But, without him going around saying, they fired me because of who I am and the people I associate with. That's a little harsh to go by. However, ABC's defense of, the scheduling didn't really work out too well and this and that, and that just didn't seem right either. So I'm not too convinced that, him getting dropped was purely because of scheduling, because they were quite happy with that show, with Dr. Ken and a couple of their other shows that they had. So why just cancel it like that? Why did they have to play coy with all that? Something just doesn't sit right to me when they're like, oh, it's just scheduling issues. That's why we canceled that show. There's no other reason to do that. It was all because of scheduling. I mean, something just seems fishy in my mind with that. So I feel for Tim Allen because, his comedies do very well. He's very loyal to the shows that, he's worked for, to the networks and all that kind of stuff. If it was personal issues, that's bad. If it was for the scheduling issues, that's not any better. But for the most part, it just seems fishy that they would cancel 2 of their better comedy shows. They're not pulling in Big Bang Theory, type numbers or anything like that. But for instance, but it doesn't seem to sit well with viewers and stuff like that when you hear something like that being taken in. A couple of the new shows that they do have coming in, they have a show called The Good Doctor, which stars Freddie Highmore, who played Norman Bates in Bates Motel, and Bates Motel is finished. Apparently he plays a surgeon with autism. So I guess from the description, it kind of sounds like it's Dr. House with a younger doctor and someone who's diagnosed with with a disease other than addiction. And I don't want to say a real disease. But it's a disease. It's another disease in another mind disease in the sense. Freddie Highmore is a very talented actor, and I do want to maybe check in on this one. He did a great job in Bates Motel. I got to watch that last season because it goes right into Psycho, which I love that movie. That movie was fantastic from top to bottom. Was just amazing. Excuse me. And then apparently ABC is going to continue. They're also adding like 2 Shonda Rhimes shows, one of which is an Untitled Grey's Anatomy spinoff. Not really much issues there, or not really much information, not issues. You're a fan of Grey's Anatomy. If you're a fan of Grey's Anatomy and you're a fan of Shonda Rhimes stuff, this is going to be see you later, bio. This is going to be mostly that same kind of thing. And also, Alex Incorporated, Zach Braff returns to television. The infamous JD. John Dorian returns to ABC. He was formerly in Scrubs. He's here to start he's in a TV show called Alex Inc., which he starts his own company after being unhappy at his own job, and goes through the hard times of that. Braff now is also a writer and director, so be sure to check out the fact that he's directed a couple of his own episodes from there. That show that I mentioned before with Lea Michele, The Mayor, it looked kind of funny. It looks kind of it looks a little, dare I say, scary, because of the lore of the fact that like anybody can just run for mayor. And I mean, we did see that with whatchamacallit, with the whatchamacallit, the like running of a lot of celebrities. Like apparently Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wants to run for president in 2020, and as much of it is that is a joke, that is probably not too far off from a lot of people wanting to do stuff. And plus you hear stories all the time that mayors are that like strange types of scenarios of mayors being 4-year-olds, or like a chicken became a mayor because of a write-in mistake or something like that, or the fact that a presidential candidate who you thought was pretty serious in the race was actually beat by Mickey Mouse, because Mickey Mouse is one of the top write-ins for the president of the United States. So something like The Mayor, although it's touted as a comedy, is actually something that could be seen in any town, not just towns that usually have these, like, they only have 5 people in it, but they're technically a town, so they get their own mayor and all that kind of stuff. So that's really kind of cool. So the last part of the show for this week would have to be the overabundance, if you would, of comic book shows. and us nerd shows coming out where we have just a lot of new, like the craze over comic book shows and nerd movies and all these, the nerd fandom from the big screen is now taking over the little screen, and the CW, was leading the charge with 4 of those TV shows being Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, and The Flash. They're actually adding a 5th show called Black Lightning, which is another DC show. Great, fantastic, wonderful. Now, the interesting thing is there's not going to be a 5-part episode crossover. And the really interesting reason for that is because Black Lightning will not take place in what everyone is now calling it the Arrowverse, because the whole scenario is taking place in its own universe. Does that mean it's going to take place in the DCEU? Maybe. Hopefully it's open to that. If not, then it's a 3rd universe that DC has, and yet a even thinner line of connection between all of their movies. Now, Inhumans is coming in on ABC. It's going to be a spin-off of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers series, and it's hopefully going to help get some more characters introduced, like the Defenders on Netflix, to help expand this ever-growing Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they will take place in the it does take place in the same cinematic universe as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. You'll probably see more interaction between Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Inhumans rather than the collaboration of the cinematic universe actually coming down to the big screen. However, I wouldn't be surprised if in the Avengers Infinity War, and whatever the second part of that is, Avengers 4, that we do see some of these Inhumans, some of the cast members from Inhumans actually bleeding into the Avengers movies. Now, another franchise that has one spin-off already working really well, which was Legion on the Sci-Fi Network, Fox is bringing in Gifted, which will be X-Men adjacent. Now, it won't be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it will expand on the kids and the mutants that we see part of the X-Men universe. So Deadpool's universe, X-Men's universe, maybe the Logan universe with all that kind of stuff. But that show will be focused on kids who are just figuring out that they are, in fact, mutants. So I'm, and it does have Bryan Singer, who's the director from the X-Men franchise, and he'll be the executive producer. So these shows will be really closely tied into each other. Another show that is really that is going to be tied into the universe is Star Trek Discovery, which I saw the trailer and I saw that one picture, and the one picture looked like they stole Rey's clothing from The Force Awakens. So there is that tie into it, but Star Trek Discovery looks as if it's going to stay in this current new J.J. Abrams Star Trek world that we live in, and kind of go into the whole like allure of being part of that universe, and also showing the Star Trek crew before they were the Star Trek crew. It'll be a different ship, a different company and all that together. It looks interesting enough. Maybe it'll be the first Star Trek show that I actually watch. Again, it's not that I bash Star Trek, it's just that I'm more of a Star Wars fan. So maybe this one will actually get me will get me interested in watching Star Trek TV shows. Who knows? The world is our oyster. From that, most of the shows that we have, CW re-upped all of their comic book shows. Supergirl will be back for season 3. Flash will be back for season 4. Arrow for season 6, which will now be the first season not to have them come back to the island where he was 5 years ago. So that is going to be a real treat, because I got to tell you, 5 seasons of seeing this of keep going back to this island and how it's sort of connected to everything that's going on. It was getting annoying. Like, yes, it was 5 years, but just show him getting off the island for God's sakes, and have him do something really, really quickly. Words cannot describe how that really ticks me off. But anyway, whatever. So the hey, is it Kingu 8? I thank you so much for the follow. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Sorry if I butcher your name. I just have not seen that at all. But yeah, so I forgot what show I was talking about. Oh, Arrow. Yeah, so it's kind of there and stuff like that. Season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, I actually finished season 2. It was really entertaining, them getting ripped back and then he leaves again because he doesn't want to be part of the new crew. I mean, crybaby on that one. So we'll see how they all do for the next season. I know Supergirl is going into a huge battle with, it looks like, Superman. And it'll be really interesting to see that. We started watching The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, season 3. Not as laugh out loud funny as seasons 1 and 2, but the story content is a little bit better. We'll see how it is. I think we're only like 7 or 8 episodes into the 12 episode season. What other show? Yeah, I started watching Master of None. I'm a fan of Aziz Ansari. I loved his stand-up comedy for the most part. He was great in Parks and Rec. Not that I was expecting to see Tommy Haverford in it at all as much, but it could have been a little bit more fun than it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, and I'll just have to rewatch it again. So yeah, there was all that going on. So yeah, I think I'll call it there for this show. Hope everybody enjoys themselves. Thank you so much again, Kinju. I'm gonna say Kingu. 8 for the follow. Go on, and at 10:30, if you want, go check out Z Biosaber, twitch.tv/Z Biosaber. He'll be playing not Final Fantasy, I know that. He'll be playing Kingdom Hearts 2, the final mix. I knew it had final in there somewhere. I'll probably shoot him over a host in just a few minutes. But enjoy yourselves. Keep watching the TV shows you want to watch. Keep enjoying yourselves as much as you want. I love every single one of you out there. I especially love you. You know who you are. Have a wonderful evening, and be sure to subscribe onto YouTube or pick up the podcast on iTunes or Google Play or anything like that. Have a great evening, and bye-bye.